Yeah.
Is this Steve Reich?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in the middle of something. I keep getting this phone call over and over and over again. Who is this?
Congratulations, it's Tom Cole at NPR. Did you know you won the Pulitzer Prize?
Oh, really?
You won the Pulitzer Prize for music for double sextet.
Well, I'll be a monkey's uncle. I was wondering, I said to the French filmmakers, I said, either this is very bad news or very good news. I'm glad it's the latter. Thank you for calling.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Wow. What a surprise. I won the Pulitzer Prize today. At the age of 72. What do you know? Wonders never cease. When I was very young, it was, just reaching up to the piano keyboard. I think my youngest, when I was too short to reach it, and just playing fifths. I realized later they were fifths, like C and G, over and over again, and singing what I called cowboy songs. I began taking piano lessons, I think, around 7 years old, something around like that. Very boring, ordinary piano lessons, simplified versions of Haydn and Bach, but not really Bach and not really Haydn and not really anything. And I did it because I was asked to do it, but it wasn't until I was 14, rather late, that the fire was lit. At the age of 14, a couple of friends had recordings who said to me, hey, take a listen. And one of them was The Rite of Spring. One of them was the fifth Brandenburg Concerto of Johann Sebastian Bach. And the third was Bebop, played by Charlie Parker and Miles Davis and the drummer Kenny Clark. And these music were it's like a revelation. And it's as if someone said to you, okay, you're 14 years old and you've never seen this room in our house. And you open the door and you walk in and you love it and you close the door. And I've been living in that room the rest of my life. That's my room. Russell have a shot? Okay, Russell. I went through college, I went early when I was 16 years old in 1953 at Cornell University, and I finished with a degree in philosophy in 1957, and I was actually accepted at Harvard as a graduate student in philosophy, and I said, I can't do this. I love music and I want to compose it. Started going to Juilliard as a composition major and went there through 61. And then I was reading Jack Kerouac and it was in the road, All right, Russell. So I went out to San Francisco and so did Luciano Berio. Berio was a very open and friendly human being who wasn't doctrinaire the way, let's say, Stockhausen or Boulez might have been, or Greg Cage might have been. People say, well, you went to Africa and then you wrote drumming, as if that's not the way it works. I was a drummer, as I said, when I was 14. But what happened in Africa was, it's as if someone pats you on the back and says, it's okay. It's okay to make music with primitive percussion instruments. You don't have to be like Stockhausen using arcades, using oscillators and ring modulators and tape machines and so on. You can use percussion. Percussion, and particularly in Cage's case, led him into electronics, and it can lead you out. Berio was a very nice man, but this technique of 12-tone music was really not for me. And the way I dealt with it was, okay, I make up a row, and then I will not transpose it to another, transpose the key, there is no key, but move it to another pitch. I will not play it backwards, retrograde. I will not invert it, go down when you go up. I will just repeat it over and over again. And Berio saw this, and he made what I've mentioned a lot. He made a very good remark. He said, if you want to write tonal music, why don't you write tonal music? And I said, that's what I'm trying to do. But if you wrote really tonal music in 1962, 63, people would laugh at you. They would consider you a fool. People didn't want to be left behind, to be an old fogey, we say, an irrelevance. So they felt they had to do it. And I felt I had to do it too, but I knew this is not me. I didn't become a composer because I wanted to sound like Boulez or Stockhausen or Berg or Schoenberg or Webern. But because I loved Bach, because I loved Stravinsky, because I loved jazz. And all of those musics were considered, I mean, early, Petrushka or The Rite of Spring, I mean, that wasn't part of the menu. It's not on the menu, I'm sorry. We're out of that for the moment. While I was at Juilliard in the early 1960s, or 62, 63, I began to hear John Coltrane when he started playing my favorite things and what was called modal jazz, which is really playing a lot of notes on very few harmonies, maybe two, maybe one. My favorite John Coltrane recording was called Africa Brass. And basically it's a half an hour on an old LP of just E. The E from the double bass. Now, jazz musicians say, hey man, what's the changes? What are the chords? The changes? E. No, what are the changes? E. E. E for half an hour. Well, you'd say, well, that's impossible. That's got to be boring. But it wasn't. So I must say that along with Vincent Persichetti at Mills College and William Austin at Cornell and Hall Overton and Luciano Berio, I must add John Coltrane to my list of teachers at the time I was a student. And not just me, but everybody in my generation who wrote eventually what was called minimal music. I don't think it would have happened. Coltrane was a pivotal part of that. Well, I figured, this is a rock and roll piece, it's a rock and roll audience, and slow movements are not part of their experience,
It's going to be incredible when we get it all together.
Yeah, it'll be a surprise. I'm surprised. So let's just try the third movement. You want to make sure that you're really even on both sides.
Absolutely.
You don't want to lose, otherwise you lose the overall feeling of rocking back and forth. This is cool. This is gonna rock.
Yeah, who wrote this piece?
I don't know, this is fun.
Yeah.
That's not allowed. You shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
This is for rock people.
Yeah.
Hey, what do you know? Off duty.
If you go
That
up
way.
and then right.
I've heard a little bit live before, but never the whole piece. I've heard the guitarists too, separately. And Mark Stewart is guitarist with Paul Simon, and the other guitar player, Bryce Desner, is the lead guitar player with the rock group called The National. But he also went through Yale, so he reads, and he's just a musician who can do anything. They're getting to be a whole new generation of players that just play rock and roll, play classical, new music, whatever you want. It's very nice. Very, very nice. A bientôt. It was 1964, and a friend said to me, "You ought to go down to Union Square on Sundays. There's this black Pentecostal preacher who calls himself Brother Walter, who's got the most amazing voice." I went down to Union Square with a portable tape recorder, and he was preaching about the flood of Noah from the Bible.
He began to warn the people. He said, after a while, it's going to rain after a while, for 40 days and for 40 nights. And the people didn't believe him. And they began to laugh at him. And they began to mock him. And they began to say, it ain't going to rain.
It's going to rain. And just as he said that, a pigeon took off. This is a park, right? It's full of pigeons. So you have, if you make a tape loop, you hear, you have a pigeon drummer. It's going to rain, it's going to rain. And then very quietly, low traffic in the background. So this was a fantastic loop. And I thought, okay, I'm going to make 2 copies of this loop. So I put them on these 2 machines, and I pushed the 2 start buttons without even looking. And I put on my headphones, and they miraculously, I mean, the odds are very high against it, the 2 were lined up in unison. But not exactly.
It's going to rain, 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 it's going to
And I began to hear the sound move from this side of my head to this side of my head. Now, what does that mean? That means that actually the loop on the coming in the left earphone was a little bit shorter and was moving slowly faster than the other one, which you perceive as a movement in space. moving over from the right side of your head to the left side, and like down my shoulder, cross the floor, until it begins to reverberate and shake, and then make a canon or round, and then finally, 7, 8, 9 minutes later, it's gonna rain. But I thought to myself, well, that's nice, but what's really amazing is this journey, this process from unison slowly through all these irrational relationships to sort of like stations on a train where it is rational, and then irrational again, and then finally to this destination that I had in mind. And then it keeps on going until slowly, it's like in retrograde, it comes back into unison in the center of your head. And I thought, wow, you can look at it in many ways. Some people would say, well, lucky accident. Other people would say, well, God gave you a gift. You can choose any way you want to explain it, but that's what happened. After It's Gonna Rain, I began to feel enough with tape. I don't want to spend the rest of my life with tape. But this process, people can't do it. How could buses, windshield wipers on a bus, they can go out of phase. Bells at a railroad crossing, they can go out of phase. But people? Well, I went through about several months of just feeling, it's great, but it's impossible. And I thought, I've got to write instrumental music, and I don't want to leave this. And finally I said, I'm the second tape recorder. And I made a recording of the pattern that became piano phase, and I put it on a tape recorder, and I sat down at the piano. I said, okay, here we go. And I started in unison with the tape. I could close my eyes because I know what I have to do. I'm not improvising, but I don't have to read it. I know the pattern. I know that I have to get just as slowly ahead of the tape as I can till I'm 1/16th note ahead. And then so on until I'm back in unison, and then the pattern changes. And I found, wow, I can do it. And doing it feels very good. It's like meditating because you're just totally wrapped up in the sound of the music without being distracted by looking at the notes. And then after a few months of working out the details of this piece, I wanted to play with another musician to see, forget about the tape entirely. And it worked. I felt like, look, Ma, no tape. All the phase pieces are really just a variation of canons. Only instead of a melody, you have a short pattern, and instead of a certain rhythmic distance, you have a flexible distance where it's changing. So the whole phasing idea is just a kind of footnote to the history of canon in Western music. best that I've ever played with you guys. Did you agree? I mean, is this tempo? I mean, it's like you can enjoy the piece. I mean, you're the reigning expert in this entire ensemble. You heard it. This woman knows more about this piece than I do, so if she says it's right, it's right. So only one problem, because nothing's ever perfect. In section 9, particularly for the percussion and for Roland for the cues, it's a little unclear, I think, to people what the order is that you're cueing. The first, after the voices and the strings build up the melody initially, then Roland has to turn to the percussion. Pianos don't change. Okay, and the next nod goes to Jürgen, is it? No. Who's playing top piano over here?
Niels.
Niels, okay. So you're giving to Niels, and Niels, you go from the pattern to the pulse. Reiner?
Yes.
You don't change. Until... All right, when I started to use the human voice, as you noticed in drumming in 1971, right after the tape pieces, I really wanted the voice to become part of the music. There were no words for drumming, and there were no words for music for 18 musicians. But the voices are going to play in drumming. It happened as follows. I was writing the second section of the piece, the marimba section. And the way I did it was I was playing on the marimba and making a recording of myself, and then playing back that recording and playing against the recording in another rhythmic position, another phase position, to make a different kind of canon or round. And as I did it, I started to hear women singing. Now, I wasn't on any psychedelic substance. I just heard the women singing. And I thought, so this is the acoustic result of two or more marimbas playing these repeating patterns over and over again. It creates the same, because it's about the same pitch level as a woman's voice, and the overtones are just right for that. So I thought, well, okay, what if you really got some women to come and sing some of these patterns that are really there? All our lives, we live with speech melody. Someone says to you, no. That's one word. Someone else says to you, no. That's another word. What's different? The music and the theater of what they say. And that's crucial for your life, for what people are telling you. That's really a big part of the information. And some languages, as we know in Africa, and I suspect in China, are melodic languages. And if you sing it incorrectly, then you say it incorrectly. So this connection is just part of human life. And I think that's why these pieces work. But these are very different ways of working. Taking a recorded voice and simply presenting it in its musical form, the early tape pieces. Taking a singing voice, but having them only act like an instrument. Saying, okay, let's just sing, the way people have sung words to music for thousands of years. That's in Tehillim and the desert music and Daniel variations. Or taking a recording, but saying, let's work the recording into a real musical instrument, like in different trains, where you really have the two, the documentary reality and the musical reality going on at the same time. So these are different ways of working with text, for sure. finally, by 1981, I felt, what about just writing music with words the way everybody else has done? Can't I do that too? And so in 1981, when I wrote Tehillim, I was also, had gone back into Judaism. I wanted to bring in a Judaic text into the music. And what better text than the Psalms? The Psalms, we know, were written by King David to be sung. We don't know how they go. We've lost that tradition. The Yemenite Jews from Yemen are the only Jews on earth who have a living tradition of that. But the rest of us who've went to Europe or other countries in the Middle East lost that tradition, which was good for me as a composer, because I didn't have a little super ego sitting on my shoulder saying, it goes this way. It was terra incognita, and I could compose. I picked out fragments from 4 different Psalms in the original Hebrew, and I started saying them over. I mean, I guess as composers have done for thousands of years. I'd say the text, Hashemayim, Asaparim, Kavod Kel, the heavens declare the glory of God, and then finally, Hashemayim, Asaparim, Kavod Kel. And at the same time as the words went through my mind, these numbers went through my mind. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. And I thought to myself, what's that? Tehillim actually turns out to be a more traditional Western piece of music. It was 1 step forward, 2 steps back. But for me, something new. And nothing that anybody else had really heard. But the last movement is Hallelujah in D major. Now, that's what you have in the Messiah of George Friedrich Händel, is the Messiah in D major. So it conjures up historical precedents, but it really doesn't sound like the Messiah at all, or anything like that. So it's a mixture of old and new. But for me, definitely a step into traditional Western musical practice. Don't ask me how, God knows, but suddenly these trips on a train that I had taken as a child between my divorced father and mother, my father in New York City and my mother in Los Angeles, one of the lawyer father in New York and the singer and lyricist singer in Los Angeles, came into my head. I began thinking also about the sounds that American trains make and all the different pieces of music that have Coltrane, Night Train, Soul Train, Chattanooga Shoeshine Boy. I mean, we have a whole tradition of train music in jazz and popular music.
From Chicago. From Chicago. From Chicago to New York.
It was a time of my life, you know, it was a very emotional thing. I mean, it was an adventure to go for 4 days and live on a train. But it's also sad because I was either just leaving my father or just leaving my mother, and I knew that they weren't going to be together. Then I thought to myself, well, when did I do that? What years was that? 1937, 38, 39, 40. What was going on in the world while I was taking the, well, what was going on in the world was Mr. Hitler was trying to take over the world, and he was starting by grabbing every Jew he could get his hands on and sending them off first to around Munich at Dachau, but finally off to Poland, where nobody would see what went on. And I began to think, well, you know, if I was born in New York and I was traveling to Los Angeles, but I've seen pictures, a very famous picture in the Warsaw Ghetto, of a little boy. He's about 6 or 7 years old. He has a cap on, not this kind of cap, but a peddler's cap, short pants. He looks just like me at that age. And I thought, well, you know, if I was born in Paris, if I was born in Budapest, if I was born in Rotterdam, we wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation. So those were the different trains. Not making my interpretation of the Holocaust my fantasy. I am presenting people talking about their own lives. And as they speak, so the music goes. The same is for Virginia or Mr. Davis. And if Different Trains works, and it seems to, it's because the documentary reality and the musical reality are one and the same thing. Grazie a tutti.
Grazie.
Grazie a tutti, bravo. So we say, break a leg. I know you say mouth of the wolf.
Yeah.
For example, when it goes like 1940,
Yeah.
and the voice is like 1940 almost,
Yeah.
and the rhythm is dun dun da da,
Yep.
shorter.
Yes.
Should it be like more like together or?
Well, I think that the da ba da is it good because it gives a chance for the voice to be heard. You want to be, here's the voice, and you are inside the voice.
Yeah.
You're not in front of the voice.
Yeah.
You know, that's the important
Like
thing.
a cloth, a dress.
Well, it's like literally inside. He's pitched, but you're making him really pitched. You're really making him an instrument.
Yeah.
My record producer says, what I'm looking for is a voice-strument. Fortunately, there are people all over the world now, younger musicians particularly, who want to play my music and play it beautifully. But I must say that there's something special, je ne sais quoi, about what American musicians bring to American music. So if they are younger and they are also American, then they really, they bring a lot of energy in a very easy way. It's very important not to get like that in my music or any music. Rhythmic energy is exciting, but it also comes from being here, being relaxed, having a center. Otherwise, you don't project the right rhythm, the right feeling. Yeah.
Bartók, to bury Sarah. It has no particular meaning to me.
I have no idea.
I'm using audio tape. I just have these people's voices. What if it was videotape and you could see them, and at the same time as you saw them, you could see musicians on stage playing their speech melody? Because I used to see live performances at different trains, and the cellist, even if it's a woman, somehow becomes the voice of the man that she's accompanying.
Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln.
The cave is in 3 acts, and in each act we ask a different group of people the same questions. Questions are, who for you is Abraham, Sarah, Hagar, Ishmael, and Isaac in order of appearance? First act we ask Israeli Jews, second act we ask Palestinian Muslims, third act we ask Americans.
A
Father of the faithful. Of the faithful. Of the faithful. The Father of faith. Father of faith. Father of faith.
Now, strangely enough, both the Muslims and the Jews would say, he's my father. They would be that literal about it, even thousands of years later. Who is Ishmael? He's my father. Who is Isaac? We came to America, we asked an avant-garde theater director the same question at the beginning of the third act. She said, Abraham Lincoln? Well, I said, great, central casting, perfect, you're in.
I think of Abraham like this. It's 2100 BC or thereabouts. He's living in the third dynasty of Ur. It's a polytheistic society. The chief god is Nana, who's the moon god. Abraham grows up, he's a city kid. His father makes idols, he crafts idols.
God says, go. I'll show you where later. Abraham ups and leaves.
Just leave mother, father, and everybody else and go.
Abraham ups and leaves.
The most important part of any piece of music is the emotional effect it has on the musician who's playing it, the audience is listening to it, but it is also the most difficult or perhaps impossible thing to talk about. You're going to say, I want to write a piece that's very emotional. I mean, tell me something. So when talking about music, in my experience, the most useful thing is to talk about the techniques that are happening there, knowing full well that they're without any value unless the music really... We wouldn't be having this discussion if I had done, whatever technical innovation, if it didn't get to people emotionally. Now, how do we know that's working? Well, when I'm writing a piece, there's two things operating. Number one, I want to see, is this really working, intellectually? Is this really, I'm really doing the best I can? And do I want to hear it again? And again, it sounds good on Monday. Is it good on Wednesday? How about next Wednesday? And if I love it, then perhaps somebody else will too.